أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدرا ويسر لي أمري واهدوا إذا تبين القول واهدوا إذا صراط الحميد. My distinguished colleagues, brothers and sisters, the able committee that is trying to harness knowledge, intelligence, talent, creativity, wisdom in business to business and individuals to business and business to individuals. Good morning to you all. If it was possibly a week before last, I would have been speaking to you as the Director General Center for Management Development, but I served my 8 years or 4 years times 2 for the tenure and left my little young brother, Dr. Yemi Kale, from the National Bureau of Statistics, who is following my footstep. And I'm glad, and I ask his disciples as to whether he is going to be coming today. I gave him a call and I encouraged him to come. And I hope he's going to be here. He's an intelligent young man who will give most of the answers, you see, in areas of statistics and records about enterprise and entrepreneurship. So when I finish on Wednesday, the 14th of February, at the DGCMD, I assumed another office as a DG the next day, which was the 15th of February. So I'm now not going to be speaking as a DG of CMD. I will be speaking as the DG of ICICE. And it is what? International Center for Islamic Culture and Education. So you would infer that my talk, you know, when you are talking about ethical finances, can be summarized in 3 different sentences. And I can easily take a seat and say thank you very much. The first one, of course, is interest-free banking, because it is the interest that has been highlighted by my colleague, by my brothers, that people go and take an interest loan of about 28% and go and get married or buy a car or buy a house. They don't know what that money is meant for. It is not for luxury. It is not for consumption. It's for production. And that's what we don't do. We consume more and we produce less. And it is supposed to be the reverse. And I can give you a typical example. I will give you the preambles. A typical example is Japan. When you look at Japan, they import all the raw materials in the world. I see Japan as a black box where there is input and output devices, just like your own computer or like your television. They import all the raw materials from all parts of the world. It goes into that black box, and then we get a finished product as an output or an outcome, and is also exported to all parts of the world. And of course, the amount in terms of monetary terms of export far exceed that of import. And that is why they have surplus, and that is why they are number 3 economy in the world today. They used to be number 2. But China is overtaking everybody, including the US, in the next 10 years. So we have got to learn. The B2B must learn, you know, from the Japanese style. I'm going to give you an example. I have been to Japan quite a number of times, and it's a very interesting country. 80% of it is mountainous, not good for any investment, not good for agriculture, not good for habitation. But they are number 3 in the world. The question is, what is the magic? And the magic is simple. Because Japan is a knowledge-based economy. It is a knowledge-based economy. And Japanese already practice what B2B is preaching in Nigeria. Because if you set up a company like the Toyota company, that company is not owned by individual. It's owned by the workers. They set their own targets. They set up their own criteria. So you either let it flourish or you kill it. It is actually on you, and everybody contributes in terms of shareholding, in terms of performance, in terms of productivity, in terms of the raising the competencies, the capacities and the capabilities of the workforce, to take it to the next level. So that is why Japan is a knowledge-based economy, and that is why they thrive. Because we define, learning as recurrent newness. It's recurrent newness. We learn every day. And that is what they believe actually in Japan. And I will just give you a simple example I came across through the social media. The Japanese, they love fresh fish. They love fresh fish. And they have to go far down to the sea, as much as not less than 200 miles, in order to get fresh fish, actually in their boats. But they discovered that when they go far 200 to 500 miles, by the time they come back, to the land, that fresh fish is no longer fresh. So what have they done? So they decided to have coolers and fridge and whatever, so that they can preserve it. But exactly again, by the time they come back, it's no longer a fresh fish. So what have they done? They were very creative. So I'm talking about, the strategy for success, on the bottom of the pyramid is ideas. And not only ideas, but creativity. And not only creativity, but innovation. These are all 3 different things. Ideas, they come from wisdom. And when you translate that wisdom, into something that is really, concrete in terms of meaning, it can possibly be applied to give a product. That's called creativity. But when you then have that creativity and you translate those ideas into a product, and that's what you call innovation. So the B2B, absolutely needs ideas, and that's what we call the recurrent newness, and that is why we have to have collaboration, and partnership, and mentoring, and shadowing, and networking. Because this is the only way you can rub, the mind, and shoulder together and learn actually from each other. So what have the Japanese, what have they done? The Japanese said, look, hang on. What we now need to do is we now get the fresh fish and put it in a fund. And by the time you put those fish in the fund, by the time you come back to the land, they wiggle and wiggle and wiggle, they became tired. Then they die, so they are no longer fresh. So what have they done? They decided to get a small shark. They get a very small shark and put in the fund, and then they consistently and continuously, the fish became very active because of the presence of the shark. So the fish never die until they come to the land. And this is what we need to do, is critical thinking, and lateral thinking, and thinking outside the box in terms of our, initiatives for the bottom, of the pyramid, market. Now, this is very simple. You can see the kind of knowledge and the creativity these people are having, and that is why they are number 3 in the world. And what I'm simply saying, with the talent, with the knowledge, with the skills we have got, we can easily attain that level. So to me, as far as I'm concerned, I can easily sit down here now and say, in terms of the ethical finance banking, there are only three things for us to consider. We are doing that, cooperatives. So we collaborate, we cooperate. We create share ownership. I will tell you, when I actually retired last week, I asked myself a question. What am I going to be doing? I was waiting and thinking. And a friend of mine came to see me. And he said to me, I have got something that we can possibly do. You have been in Manchester, and you lived there 25 years. And you know NCC. And the NCC is National Computer Center. They do nothing but other than, providing the ICT infrastructure, for who? For the British government. But through that, because of, they wanted to diversify, in terms of their financial and economic activities, and also divestment, they decided to produce all learning materials, and distance learning materials, and open learning materials. Now they have conquered the world. In those days, the most widely known and the biggest university in the world is the Open University in the UK. And the biggest university in Nigeria is the National Open University now, because they have got 500,000 students enrolled. But the number of students enrolled across the country, there are only 2 million in all the universities. So they contribute 25% of the intake from now. But now the NCC is taking over because they are almost in every city. We checked, they produce distance learning materials, open learning materials in actually Nigeria, in Lagos, and in Saudi Arabia, in almost all the countries in the world. So the guy came and said to me, what do you think? I said, we can easily talk to them and replicate and deliver executive MBA programs for people like you, those of you who are working. You can come and study at the weekends, you can study in the evenings, you can do the models, and then after 2 years, you get your qualification. I was executive MBA, accredited by a British university, and you do your dissertation, and you get your qualification at almost 25% of the cost if you had to go and live in the UK. So we have to try and be innovative. And this is what I'm trying to say. And the third example that I wanted to give, because we have to live by example. I hate the talking, we need to talk the talk, and we need to talk the walk, and we need to walk the talk. And this is really very important, which we don't do much. Everywhere you go, there are conferences, there are seminars, there are this, there are that. But translated into what? Translated into jamboree. Translated into seeing you in the television talking, visibility, and that's the best, that's not the objective. The objective is to combat unemployment, combat insecurity, and tackle the issue of insecurity, reduce poverty, in the country, create a viable and sustainable nation, not just a country, but a nation. So the third example I wanted to give, I was in the UK, and then somebody said to me, there is this company, they're having problems. And what is it? It's a company that produces toothpaste. They're having problems. And so one of us, very creative and very innovative. So I'm saying B2B must live on creativity and innovation. That's the message I'm trying to put across. Don't do the normal things. You have to think outside the box. So what happened? This guy approached the MD of the company and said, look, hang on. You have this problem. The market, there is a drought. You are losing in terms of your market. And also, possibly this company might close. Why? Because the expenditure was going up and the income was going down. And it simply means that is equal to closure, because it will be equal to bankruptcy. He said, I can help you. I can help you with some ideas that if you take and you apply, it will actually, rescue the company. But you must give me only 10% of the surplus. Then the MD said, no. How can you just by coming to talk to us and just tell us, and then we will give you all 10% of our surplus, of our profit? That's not going to be acceptable. And then he took the matter to the board. The board looked at it and said, let us give him a chance. Because if somebody has got ideas, if there is no win, there is no fee. If at all we don't make anything, we don't give him anything. So it doesn't make sense for us to say we're not going to invite that person. The message I'm saying to all of you guys here, you can sell your ideas. You don't need money in order to run a business. What you need is ideas. And I am backing up with this actual scenario that I'm talking about. What did this guy did? They agreed. And then he said, okay, I will tell you one thing. There are only 2 actions this company need to take. Are we together? Are we sure? He said there are only 2 items that we need to do to rescue this company. He said, okay, you produce toothpaste. He said, yes. If you look at the size of the mouth of where you elute the toothpaste, let us reduce the diameter by a half. So it simply means whatever was the size is now reduced by a half. What does that mean? It means whenever you press the toothpaste, you will now only get half of what you used to get. And of course, when you rub it on your teeth, it will help, it will still do the job as if it was the earlier, full amount you were using before. And it simply means that the customer will now use this toothpaste twice longer than whatever the period he was using it. Are you with me? Why? Because when you elute half. So if it takes you 1 month to finish a toothpaste, now it will take you 2 months. And that's fantastic saving for the customer. And then he looked at the other side. He said, you as a company that produces the toothpaste, you reduce the concentration, you see, of the toothpaste, the emulsion, the jelly, you reduce it by a half. So the concentration was diluted to half. So it simply means they need half of the raw material in order to suffice and meet the needs of the customers. So at the end, when they did that, you buy the toothpaste, it comes out quickly and you get half of it, you brush up, it takes you twice longer, the customer is happy. In terms of themselves, they need to spend 100 naira for the raw material, they are now spending 50 naira. And then obviously, they started making a profit. And this guy came and said, give me my 10% and walk away with the 10%. So we must think creatively and innovatively. I'm coming to the finance. Now, the last bit is that there was a manager in the United States, and he was going on a business trip. On his way, he did some bit of competition, because the first speaker made mention, we don't really have a budget. We don't have a business plan. We don't have strategic plan. We don't have implementation plan. We don't really have the roadmap. So failing to plan is planning to fail. And that is why when you start your investment, you fail before you start. Because you didn't do all these calculations on the matchbox. So this guy was driving, he said, okay, if I go to the airport and I park my vehicle for 1 month, I'm going to pay $5,000. Say, yes, that's correct. You will pay $5,000. And then they said, okay. Then the next one they said, okay, you're going to pay $5,000. They said, okay, I'm going to pay $5,000, but just by parking my car over there. I said, yes. Then he went to the bank. And he said to the bank, if I want to borrow $10,000, what is going to be the interest rate? Then they say it's going to be 10%, so you will give us $11,000 after 1 month. He said, that's fantastic. He thought very thoroughly. They said, but we need equity. We need for you to give us a collateral. And what is a collateral? We say, I've got my car. It's over $10,000. He said, okay, no problem. We'll take the car. So the bank took the car and parked it. And he took the loan of $10,000. And he came back after 1 month. He gave them $11,000. And they gave him back his car. What happened? he saved how much? $4,000. This is how we should think. I don't have to, we have virtual offices. We have got opportunities for people to actually have a virtual office and a virtual brain and also a virtual creativity and a virtual innovation. So the last thing you should do is to go and borrow money. So when you are in a position like that, what are the critical success factors for your own business? Because we are talking about the bottom of the pyramid. So bottom of the pyramid, you can never ever touch that sector except and unless you have got to speak, you have got money. Money is a critical factor. And there must be some elements that I call as critical success factor if we want to invest at what? The bottom of the pyramid. And one of it, the first one is finance, and that's what we are talking about. The second one is about manpower. You have to have people who have the capacity and capability, the knowledge, the skills, and the attitude, KSA, all three compounded together. You must have the energy, the manpower. You don't rely on NEPA, you don't rely on generator, you also need to rely on what? Solar. Alternative source, so that you can keep things going. You must have access, to raw materials. Today, if there is raw material, tomorrow if there is none, you'll operate at zero capacity or half capacity. That doesn't make sense. And there must be the raw material for sustainable investment. And then, of course, you must have an enabling environment for that, to happen. These elements are very, very critical. And these elements are important. Now, I have said, I wanted to say, in order to operate the bottom of the pyramid, there are 10 key things that I was going to say, but I will summarize it. We talk about ideas, creativity, and innovation. That is one. And you have to have a business model, not what you think. It has to be based on research and development. You must go and devise questionnaires, ask MBS, the data they have got, so that you can plan from the position of knowledge, not from the position of ignorance. And you need to identify the needs, the demands, and also the constraints, and you have to work on targets and set targets. And where are your businesses going to be based? It doesn't have to be in a confined office. It could be a virtual environment. So you need to think about that. And of course, we must be thinking dynamically, because the world is globalized and is dynamic, in terms of the product and so on. And we must be able to ask for government assistance in varieties of ways. I don't mean to say as individuals. Access to funds, which is very good. I don't have to talk about that. You can see that the Central Bank of Nigeria is moving quite a lot about interest-free banking, and enabling environment, for the business, to happen. So government must provide this, and we must put pressure on government to make sure that this is done. Now, coming to the issue of the investment climate, and also what resources somebody might have to have. I'm not going to read all these of my talks, but I just wanted to say that you can look at the issue to do with actually finances that we said you must make sure that the alternative sources, of funding. First of all, there is interest-free banking. In other words, they call it Islamic banking. So it's interest-free. And this is really very, very important. Okay, it's very, very important. Yes, and also in Islam there is a cut. So there is a cut, and people have to pay some certain amount of money, out of what they have that has been with them for about a year, and then take and give away to charity. And these things can be done to promote education, to promote health, and other things, like that. And also in another context, there we can get people that are also contributing money, like the community, like the cooperatives, you know, putting some money into the pot, and anybody who wants to borrow can go and take interest-free and then use the money for the businesses and return it. And these are very, very important ways. But what I wanted to say is that the magnitude of new opportunities in the emerging market is real. So there is no doubt about that. And it has also been reported that, you know, top of the pyramid and the bottom of the pyramid the gap is widening. And this is true because only 1% of the population control 50% of the wealth. Only 1%. And the other 99%, they share only 50%, you see, of the wealth. So it simply means there are issues there. The potential of the bottom of the pyramid cannot be realized without an entrepreneurial reorientation among all of us. Reorientation in terms of the market, the real strategic challenges we are facing. We have to visualize and we have to be objective, and we have to have in mind that we want to tackle issues of abject poverty. Some estimates, you know, based on the broad segment of the BOP, puts its demand of consumers of about 5 trillion in purchasing parity powers. So it's a huge market. And if you ask me, in the states, where is the bottom of the pyramid? I'll say there are only 2 states. Which ones are they? Lagos and Kano. Because in each one of them they have 15 million in terms of population or 20 million in terms of population. And so that is actually where investment can take place. So what we are saying, managers working on BOP markets, they need to create awareness, they need to generate access, and they should also create things that are affordable, you know, for the local people, so that people can afford, you know, to buy. And the last one is they need to produce, you know, things that are really going to be readily available to the market and is going to be for the benefits, you know, of the majority rather than actually the minority. And as such, I'm equally saying that it is very, very important for us, you know, to remember the bottom of the pyramid. We have got some guiding principles. And the guiding principles is one, there is the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. These are all opportunities for us to invest on the bottom of the pyramid. Sustainable Development Goals, areas to eradicate poverty, there are 17 of them. Hunger, good health, education, gender equality. And so, if we really want the market to flourish, we need to attract women and create opportunities for women, you know, to have enterprise and entrepreneurship, you know, activities. And also affordable energy and economic growth, innovation, creativity, infrastructure, create, you know, sustainable cities and communities. And we need to also have, you know, investment in life and land. And we need to have investment, you know, in terms of peace, justice, and very strong institutions for transparency and accountability. And finally, the only way we can all address the issue of the bottom of the pyramid is based on partnership, you know, for the goals, you know, for us to achieve, you know, the bottom up approach, you know, strategies to make the business to succeed at that particular level of the ladder. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.